everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Drafted Pages podcast. Pretty pumped up for this episode. The Stanley Cup Finals just concluded. We know our winner, the Vegas Golden Knights, and I decided to have my dad and my older brother Matt join me for this episode. We're huge hockey fans. We all have different favorite teams, so lots of different perspectives, but we'd love to talk hockey, talk sports. And with that, Matt, I'll pass it off to you. What are your takeaways from this year's playoffs compared to last year's?
I think the biggest thing was just not as obvious a conclusion for me. I thought last year's was a pretty predictable final for anyone who had been watching throughout the season. I think Colorado and Tampa were kind of the clear favorites to get there from the beginning, and I thought this year there was a lot more competition, as evidenced by the fact that the Florida Panthers come from wild card two to get to the final. Vegas, which has been so close and just hasn't been able to get over the hill, finally winning the cup. So I thought that on the whole, it was a more competitive postseason than it was last year.
Dad, same takeaway or a different take?
So slightly, I agree with a lot of what Matt said, but I have a slightly different take. I mean, I picked Vegas to win right from the beginning because I just felt, as Matt said, that, they had been close so long and their window, I think, was closing. I don't know how much more time they had on it. Florida, perspective on Florida, we've all talked about it. You win the President's Trophy, you get smoked that year, and you come back the next year. You're in the Stanley Cup final, right? So I think they followed the script, if you will, in that regard. But I think one of the takeaways for me was, and I talked to Matt about it, I don't know if you were aware of this. So, Marchessault wins the Conn Smythe. Mm-hmm. He is the first non-drafted player to win that award since
Wayne Gretzky.
Wayne Gretzky.
Well,
yes. and
as Marchessault,
most of the time that goes to a superstar. Right. And not that Marchessault is not a bad player, but I wouldn't put him in the, elite category. I mean, he's not a McDavid. He's not a McKinnon. He's not an Eichel, but he walks away with the Conn Smythe.
Well, and as Marchessault, you have to feel a little vindicated, too. I mean, the guy's whole career, like you said, he was undrafted. He was left unprotected by Florida. I mean, not only was he left unprotected, they gave Vegas a draft pick to take Marchessault.
Right.
So he's one of the original, golden misfits. I mean, the guy's whole career has been, I'm a good player. Why does nobody want me on their team? So you got to feel a little vindicated if you're Marchessault, and a little bit of the, this has to be a little bit extra sweet, especially beating Florida to do it. It's got to feel good for him.
Yeah, for him and Riley Smith both going back, playing Florida, getting that revenge on the team that basically didn't want you anymore. I mean, it's got to feel great as well as all the other golden misfits, as you said, Matt, who finally, were there from the original expansion and finally got to hoist the cup, all that hard work. And like the owner said, we're going to win the cup in 6 years. We're going to get it done. They kind of broke the model. I mean, every year a team wins a sports championship, everyone's always like, okay, that's how you do it, right? We saw Colorado do it. We're like, okay, they build up from the core. They have these superstars. They finally got the depth. They didn't have a superstar goalie, right? Okay, so that's how you do it. You put all your money everywhere else and you just get an okay goalie. Tampa, we watched them go 3 straight years to the Cup. We watched them have players take discounts similar to Boston. They have the superstars. They have an elite top 3 goalie in the league. And they have that core that was there from the beginning, built up, finally got to the Cup. We're like, okay, so you built from within. That's how you win the Cup. Vegas kind of breaks the mold. That gets a lot of flack for it throughout their history in just being like, oh, shiny new penny. We're going to go get it. We don't care. We'll trade away contracts. Pacioretty, go to Carolina. We'll give them to you for free for future considerations. And he's a 30-goal scorer, right, throughout his career every year. So do you think Vegas kind of found something, found a secret formula in terms of winning and just going out and getting who you want on your team, no matter the cost, no matter the loyalty? or do you think it's better to build from within? Matt, we'll start with you with that.
I think there's merits to both approaches. I think we've seen through history teams building within. It takes time to lay that foundation to build it up, but I think there's a track record of success here. I also think Vegas is in a different situation because they're such a new team. They kind of sort of, I mean, 6 years, even the ones who have been there from the beginning, everyone's kind of a shiny new penny. Right,
Yeah.
6 years is not a really long time to lay that foundation. I think what Vegas did really well is knowing when to move on from what pieces. Like you said, Pacioretty's a 30 goal scorer, but he's been injured, I mean, several years in a row now. He didn't play for the Canes in the playoffs, so he didn't do them any good. So, trading him for future considerations turns out to be not that bad a move if it frees up that cap space for somebody else. I think too what Vegas did down the lineup is I saw a similarity with some of their kind of down the lineup guys with Tampa's. We talk about Tampa superstars, but they had guys like Yanni Gord and Barkley Goodrow and Blake Coleman and Ross Colton scored the top winning goal.
Yep.
Yeah, 2 years ago. So you get buy-in and you get contributions from down the lineup, and I think Vegas did that last year with or this year with Carlson playing down the lineup with guys like Amadio and just getting that buy-in from everybody top to bottom.
Dad, your thoughts? How would you build a contender?
I think to piggy off of what Matt said, it depends on the team. It depends on the situation you're in. Let's go all the way back 6 years ago to Vegas. The NHL, you talk about the shiny new penny. They've got a new team. They are the first sports franchise in Vegas. Okay. They have to be a success. We can't fail here. So what's the NHL do? They structure a scenario that they realized was completely wrong after they did it. And Seattle got screwed basically because they couldn't do what Vegas did. We're going to allow you to trade players and contracts and take contracts and do all this stuff to basically build a winning team right from the get-go. Okay?
It was a free-for-all.
Right. Okay. That's never happened in the history of sports before, ever. No league, no new team has ever been able to do that. Okay. So that put them in a very different situation than most franchise teams right off the bat. Okay. So, and like Matt said, now they're reached a point where they've done it and they don't have the draft picks. So let's trade some players. Let's get some assets coming in here because we don't really have any now. And we don't know how much longer this window is going to be open. And let's face it, when Leonard went down, everybody was writing Vegas off because they had no goalie.
Nobody knew who the goalie was.
I mean, I remember talking with you guys about it and literally saying the window's closed. That's it. They got no shot.
Yeah, and they pulled these guys from gosh knows where, and they all did well for them. So, give them all credit because they did great. But, we've all talked. The three of us have talked about it, especially in baseball. Okay, and I know we're talking hockey, but what's a draft pick? Until that player sets foot on the NHL ice, it's a what if, okay?
Jack's magic beans.
Yeah, and there's I don't know if you guys have looked at it. There is a great article in this month's or this week's whatever it is, biweekly the Hockey News, where they list each team and how many picks after the first round that they've had that have actually made it to the NHL. Okay, it's not that many. Okay, it's really not. So. To build from within takes a lot of savvy to draft those. It's easy to hit a home run when you're in the top 10. Okay. But it's after that and those later round picks, that you strike gold with. Okay. That's, you need some real savvy GMs, some real savvy scouting to get those so-called diamonds in the rough if you're going to build that way. So I think, and the NHL has also become a young man's game. They've priced a lot of the older players out because of the cap. If the older players want to keep playing, they've got to take a discount because they're just going to, the younger kids are faster, bigger, stronger, and they cost the teams a lot less money in the cap. So they're bringing up these kids at younger ages than before. And so I think you need a combination of veteran players as well as the draft picks. I think that you're going to find over the course of time, you're always going to have that one-off year where somebody does something, I think. But over time, the formula is going to be a mix of veterans and young players through the draft. I think that's going to be the way teams do it.
Yeah. I mean, you guys both talked about buy-in, and I think something Vegas took right out of Tampa's book this playoff run is block shots. We talk about it. The mentality when you get to the hockey playoffs, it's different. Everybody knows it's different. You have to have full buy-in, top to bottom. Every forward, every defender has to be on the same page and has to be able to do what it takes to get to that next level, to get a win, right? Just win today, get to tomorrow, reassess, and we hear about it afterwards. All the injuries that players are playing through. I mean, Kachuk hearing about the fractured vertebrae that he was going through. Gudis with a high ankle sprain. I mean, these guys are all going to need surgery, going to be out for months, and they're playing through all these ridiculous injuries. But Vegas, to their credit, I mean, they blocked shots like no one else did in past playoffs, right? And I think that's a huge reason to their success and why their goaltending was able to survive this playoff run. I mean, Aiden Hill, credit to him, he did very well, but he was a kind of a nobody, third stringer at best for most NHL teams before this run, right? And do you think now that he got that win and he got Vegas that cup, do you think they have to re-sign him now? You think it's an automatic, or do you think they kind of take a page out of Colorado's book and they're like, all right, thanks for the cup, we'll reassess and run with Thompson and whoever else next year?
I think I think they're going to reassess. I don't think they necessarily have to sign him. I I think it's all about cap and the dollars. If they work, they'll sign them. If not, they'll say see ya.
Yeah, I agree. I think ultimately it's a business and it comes down to a business transaction, which right or wrong, that's just kind of the way it works. I don't think it's an automatic. I also am going to go out on a limb here and I'm going to say maybe this is an unpopular opinion. I don't think Aiden Hill won them the cup. I don't think Aiden Hill was great consistently throughout the playoffs. I think he showed flashes of brilliance, particularly in the Western Conference Final against Dallas. What did he have? 2 shutouts, against a team that's sporting guys like Jason Robertson and Rope Hintz. So I think he showed flashes of brilliance, but I don't think he was brilliant in the Stanley Cup Final. I think it's easy to win when your team is scoring 5, 7, 9 goals, in front of you. So I don't think it's automatic. I think he certainly deserves consideration, and certainly deserves credit for the work that he did, but I don't think it's automatic by any stretch.
Yeah, I think he's in an interesting spot. I think Vegas is an interesting spot. They're going to be pressed up against the cap just like everybody else. So it's really just about the decision and where they feel like they're best suited. But like when you're a goaltender in the playoffs, yes, you can steal games. You can ride a hot hand the way Tampa sometimes did, the way Florida definitely did with Bobrovsky. Mm-hmm. And I think it really comes down to not the amount of saves, it's when you make the save, right? It's those key saves at points in the game, right? Your team just scores, then it's a 2-on-1 the other way, and your goalie bails you out to preserve, the goal that you just scored for your team. It's the third period, Florida dashing there. What is it, game 3 or 4, where they were a second away from tying the game, right? Mm-hmm. Completely different series if they get that goal across, but Hill stood tall there. So, yeah, that's the key part of the playoffs, right? And game-changing series. So,
absolutely.
Well, the other thing you have to take into account, and we've talked about this in other sports as well, is there's no pressure when you're not the guy. Okay, mm-hmm. When you're the third stringer, if you lose, so what? Nobody's counting on you to win. Yep. Okay, so there's absolutely no pressure when you're a Vasilevsky, when you're a Carey Price in his heyday. Okay. All the pressure in the world is on you because everybody's expecting you. If you give up 3 goals, oh my God, that's like the end of the world. You're not supposed to do that, right? Right. Okay. When you're the third stringer, if you give up 3 or 4 goals, so what? It's no big deal. Okay. Right. So it's a lot easier to play when there's absolutely no pressure to perform. And we all know that. Okay. The pressure is self-inflicted, that may be, but nonetheless, it's still, there's a lot more jitters and a lot more sweats when you're the guy versus, so what? I'm not the guy. Who cares?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So playoffs were great, always fun. Now we're in the lull part of sports, right, where it's just kind of baseball and that's about it, and it's the June baseball, so we still got a long season ahead. But looking forward to the draft for hockey that's right around the corner. Um, Dad, you're a Flyers fan. Matt, you're a Red Wings fan. You guys both have top 10 picks. I don't know how much you guys have been looking into the draft or been paying attention to where your teams sort of are projected and who you're supposed to pick, but for both of you guys respectively. Matt, we'll start with you. What would you like to see Stevie Y do at this draft? Do you think he should trade the pick, go out and add a superstar, trade up? What would you like?
Um, I don't think the pick is high enough to trade for a superstar on its own. I also don't think that the Red Wings are one superstar away from contending. So at this point, I'd rather see him use the pick. And honestly, they need probably everything. They do have some good prospects coming up. Edvinson is probably going to join the defensive core next year. I expect to see Sebastian Kosa get some minutes in goal next season. So they have some guys coming up. They need to start. I would like to see them start building out their forward core, and if they can get another guy who can really score the puck to take some of that pressure off of Lucas Raymond, who is a second year player. I think he just had too much expected of him this year
Yep.
on the team that he was in. So another goal scorer is what I'm hoping for. From Detroit. I was really hoping for the lottery win, but especially since it went to Chicago. But what are we going to do about that?
Yeah, I mean, the lottery has not been kind to Detroit whatsoever. I mean, you guys have been towards the bottom of the league for some time, right? Not even trying to tank, just like not good, right? I mean, after that 26-year run straight of in the
Yeah,
playoffs, it's going to happen. So it's
yeah,
been
but
bad luck.
Iserman has shown up. I think he found Mo Sider the year. I think that Lafreniere was drafted number one.
Yep.
We took Sider at 6. And so I think that you're talking about the GM that built the Stanley Cup teams in Tampa. So I have faith in his plan. He's a guy who seems to know what he's doing, and like you said, 26 years in a row is a long time to make the playoffs. There's going to be some down years when you follow a run like that.
Yep. Yeah, Dad, for you, same question. What would you like to see Philly do? Their new overhaul of management, everything's going in the right direction on paper. They're making some trades, moving out Provorov, Carter Hart's on the block. Like, do you think they should just tear it completely down and get as many assets as they can and kind of do it right, or do you think keep some of the pieces like Hart, like Konechny, and try and build around what they have?
I think it depends. The answer to that question depends on what they can get for those assets.
Well,
There
you're the
aren't
GM. What would you do? What would you do?
so I agree with what Danny Briere has said. There is nobody that's unprotected. There's nobody he won't move. Okay, but I'm not going to give players away. Okay, I mean I thought he got a massive return for Provorov. I didn't expect that at all. Okay, um, I'm not. I was never sold on Carter Hart from the very beginning. Because again, when you're not the guy and the shooters don't really know you, it's easy. Okay. He's struggled his second year. He's had some ups and downs since then. He's been wildly inconsistent. So is he the goalie we hope he is? Who knows? I don't know that you can answer that. So I think that they'll weigh every option. There's nobody really on the team that I would say is, again with Briere, there's nobody that's not tradable. There's nobody, as a Flyers fan, there's nobody from that team right now that I am excited to come watch. I'm going to the Flyers games based on who they're playing and who's coming into the building. That's who I'm going to see, okay? Because there's nobody on the Flyers right now that I get excited about. Zero, okay? Go to Colorado, right? Pick a guy. Okay, do you want to go see Tampa Bay? Pick a guy you want to go see, right? I mean, there's guys you want to see. I mean, even Pittsburgh, Crosby and Malkin may be getting older, but you still want to go see them. They're good. Okay. There's nobody like that on the Flyers. People say, "Oh, I want to go see." They're full of crap. Okay, they're full of crap. So I think who the Flyers take is is largely dependent on what happens above them. We're drafting 7th, so you're going to get a good player no matter what. But there's all this talk still remaining about Russian players, and if you draft a Russian player, are they going to come over? Are they going to be allowed to come over? You have all of that in there because there are some good players that are, saying they could be top 4, top 5 players, but are you going to roll the dice and take them? Okay. So there's a lot of what ifs there. And if I'm really honest, what I think I'm really looking to do if I'm Briere, I'm looking to trade back from number 7 because there's probably somebody out there who could really benefit by getting that oomph player at 7, and I could trade back and get some good players but build some assets. Like for instance, if I'm going to move out of number 7, I'm looking to get at least a number 1 next year from a team, okay, and maybe another number 1 lower down this year, and maybe a number 2. If you want 7, you're going to have to pony up. So I think that might be a good move for the Flyers. Again, it all depends on what you get. Because one player, like Matt said about Detroit, and Yzerman's done a great job already, but one player is not going to suddenly turn the Flyers around. Okay.
Right.
Even if you were able to draft a McDavid, what's a McDavid going to do? Like Chicago. Okay. All right. It's not going to magically turn Chicago around next year. Chicago is not making the playoffs next
He'll
year.
sell tickets.
Right.
He'll get
Right.
people in the building.
Right. Connor Bedard's going to score a point per game, and Chicago's still going to finish last in that division.
Yep.
Right, exactly.
He's the guy you were saying that you're going to pay to actually go see, right?
Right,
That Philly
right.
doesn't have.
And you're going to build around him and try and fit the pieces, okay? But he's not going to make you an instant Stanley Cup champion just because you draft him. He'll be a superstar. There's no question about that. But if Chicago doesn't build around him and get the supporting pieces he needs, Matt talked about it with Tampa, or you talked about it with Tampa. You look at all the 3rd and 4th line players that they had that bought into what we're trying to do here, okay? And it works, okay? But, you've got to get guys who are willing to accept that 3rd and 4th line role and still contribute to the success of the team.
Yep. Yeah, and that's what I hope New Jersey does this offseason. Obviously, major success this year, making the playoffs after a long time, beating the Rangers in the playoffs. Got to feel good for that young core. They re-signed Bratt. Rumors have it Meyer wants to stay for 8 years, looking to work out that extension. I mean, that's your top 6 right there. Bratt, Hughes, Meyer, Hischier, Holtz, and Mercer, right? That's your top 6 for forever, right? For the next 8 years.
Well,
and then you just got to fill out that bottom 6 right there with players who have been there, done that, like the Palots, like the McLeods who showed up this playoffs, who can play that depth role, can hit, can grind away, can win those loose puck battles, and are going to do the things that it takes to win.
I wasn't surprised by the Bratt signing. I was surprised by the number.
Higher or lower?
I thought it was higher than I thought they would go for him. Because I think, I would have looked at it, just my opinion. Maybe you have a different opinion as a Devils fan.
Mm-hmm.
I would, and he completely disappeared in the playoffs. Completely disappeared. Timo Meyer just did not perform in the playoffs. Okay, but I still like Meyer better than Bratt, and I would have made Meyer my top priority, gotten him done first, then worked on Bratt rather than the other way around. But, 6 of one, half dozen of another, I guess.
Yeah, who knows what the conversation was like behind closed doors when it all unfolded. Yeah, Meyer was a little bit snake bitten. I do like him a little bit better long term. Neither of them really showed up points-wise. But Bratt, if you look at the underlying statistics for him in the playoffs, he played well. He had a good playoff run. He just didn't score at the rate they needed to. And obviously, nobody outside Jack Hughes was really scoring for the Devils the way they needed them to, especially in that second round.
I like Meyer more because he shoots the puck more. And we
Yeah.
talk about it. You can't score if you don't shoot. And Meyer just lets it fly. He's going to shoot. He's not afraid to just take the puck and let it rip. So, and Bratt's a little more cautious. He's a little more picky about when he shoots. And I wish he had the Meyer attitude. I think Bratt could. I mean, he's not a McDavid or a McKinnon, okay, but he could be that one step below. But he's got to shoot more. He's got the skills, so just shoot.
Now, you guys, you brought up superstars in the NHL and them it being a young man's game and things like that, and obviously Connor Bedard. We're really excited to see what he can do at the NHL level. See if he can kind of replicate, the McDavid, the Matthews types first and two seasons in the NHL. But I think the Edmonton Oilers are in a very unique position. They have been ever since they got McDavid. It's been about building around him, getting him some pieces, getting him some freaking help in the playoffs so him and Draisaitl don't have to put up 5 points a game and still lose, 4 goals in a game and still lose. I think, respectively, with Draisaitl and McDavid, they have 2 and 3 years left on their contracts. Mm-hmm. Similar to kind of how the Los Angeles Angels are here with baseball, with kind of being in a playoff spot. Shohei Ohtani last year, probably not going to stay in LA, probably going to walk somewhere. Do you add to get more player to get, make it a chance, make a willing fight with Shohei and Trout on your team, or do you trade them off for extra people? So I don't want to get into baseball, but the same thing with the Oilers. Let's say the Oilers are in the same position. They've been competitive. They've been in the playoffs. Maybe they make one final, but they haven't won it yet with McDavid and Draisaitl. You're in their last year. They're not locked into an extension for the following year. They're going to be UFAs. Do you trade them for whatever you can get for them before they walk for nothing? Or do you hold on for one more run and just see what can happen?
I take a different approach first. So first of all, I don't think it's an apples to apples comparison because there's no salary cap in baseball. So Shohei Ohtani can walk away to $500 or $600 million, right? Even if David gets $15 million a year for 8 years, you're only talking about what, $120,000, right? Tops.
Yep.
$120 million. So it's not an apples to apples comparison. Ohtani has no incentive to stay when that kind of money is calling. If I'm Edmonton, I'm doing the opposite. The biggest thing they need, and we've talked about it, is a goalie. They need to stop going after these maybe goalies and just get somebody who they know can win. But if I'm Edmonton, you want to win a cup with these guys because there's more at stake to trading them is not a win either. Your fans will always remember you as the team and the management and the front office that blew, potentially the best years of these two guys' careers. So trading them is not a win. What I'm doing is I'm trading everything else I have to fill the pieces around them. Regardless of what that is. If that's, the next 10 years, first round picks to the Rangers for Igor Shesterkin because I need a goalie, then I'm ponying it up and I'm offering them because those picks do me no good. I want to win a cup with McDavid and Draisaitl. I don't want the damage of not doing it will extend far beyond just the years that they didn't do it. The franchise will take a severe hit from that. So I'm going the other way. I'm trading every asset, every down the lineup player that I have for whatever piece I think I need to win the cup.
Yep.
Yeah, I'll second that. That they have to stop the nonsense, the goalie carousel. You need a legitimate number one goalie. I've been screaming about the Flyers. They haven't had a legitimate number one goalie since Pelle Lindbergh. They've just whoever. Okay, they had Bobrovsky. Bobrovsky did not perform well for the Flyers. Maybe they gave up on him too soon. Who knows? You can't say what he did at Columbus and what he did at Florida he would have done had he stayed in Philadelphia. That's you can't do that. But you have to have a legitimate number one goalie. The other thing that I think that Edmonton needs that they don't have is they don't have buy-in down the line. They don't. They don't have players like you talked about at the beginning. They don't have players up and down the lineup willing to block shots. What made Detroit great was when Steve Yzerman decided to sacrifice his scoring and become a two-way player. Okay. What made Tampa great? When Stamkos did the same. Stamkos out there blocking shots for Pete's sake. He's getting hurt. And if you're on the team and you see the captain doing it, this is a superstar captain laying it out, blocking shots so we can win a cup. The third and fourth liners just jump right in there and follow suit. Like you said, they buy into it. Okay. Now nobody's going to expect McDavid and Draisaitl to lay it all on the line and block shots like that. Okay. So you need the other pieces that are going to do that. You need those guys. We don't need top line scoring when we have McDavid and Draisaitl. We need complementary scoring, but we need those shot blockers. We need those guys who are willing to lay it on the line and block those shots so that we can spring McDavid and Draisaitl the other way. Okay. And then, like you said, if we score 4 or 5 goals, we need to know we have a goalie that's not going to give up 7. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So yeah, I think they're in a very uniquely different situation. But I agree. The draft picks mean nothing. Get a darn number 1 goalie and take advantage of these guys while they're still in their prime.
Yeah. Trade whatever you need for whoever you think is going to do it.
Yeah, I mean, looking for a goalie. I mean, Connor Hellebuck has been on the rumor wheel now for the past 2 weeks. He says he wants to win. He's not signing an extension. I mean, Winnipeg's in that interesting spot where they've kind of had that core together and can't get it done. And it kind of seems like similar to the Maple Leafs where there's going to be some major shakeup there from a personnel perspective. Connor Hellebuck probably being at the top of the list of a major acquisition for a team out there.
If he's available, he's at the top of my list. If
you're Edmonton, what's the package? What's the package do you think? Or if you're Winnipeg, or either one, what's the package you give up to go get Hellebuck?
Anybody but McDavid and Draisaitl.
Yeah, I agree.
You think like 2 firsts and a prospect would do it for him?
Well, you know what? We talk about this all the time. Nuge had a phenomenal year. Is he going to duplicate that? He's never done what he did this year.
He's not going to get 100 points, but he's a solid 60, 70-point guy. Correct. He's a strong two-way forward. He's on a great team-friendly deal for a long time.
Yeah, but if I can trade him for my goalie, I'm doing it.
Absolutely. His trade value is never going to be higher than what it was coming off the season he had. So he's definitely in there. Friendly contract, great year. You mix him in there with a couple of, third or fourth liners and a bunch of draft picks. Come on, Hellebuck. Come on over, baby.
Yeah. If I'm Ken Holland in Edmonton and Winnipeg's willing to take my first rounder in RNH, I'm driving him to the airport myself. That's just there's no brainer.
Yeah. I mean, that would certainly be interesting. I think there's going to be a lot of crazy moves here this offseason, especially with the cap strengths yet again. Next year, the cap's going to shoot through the roof. So I think you're going to see, again, a lot of these veterans, like you alluded to earlier, Dad, taking that less money. Even maybe some guys are kind of in their prime-ish years and wanting to cash in, knowing that with the salary cap going up next year can be the year they really cash in. So I think you're going to see a lot of guys on a 1-year deal signing for less money, trying to either go win or trying to go prove something where they can have a top 6, top 4 pairing role and really thrive. I think it's going to be a really cool year for that. And considering the fact the free agent market isn't that high in terms of top end talent, the next couple of years, obviously, with Matthews, McDavid, Draisaitl, Marner, all of those names coming up, there's going to be Aho. There's going to be a lot of pushes for those guys in free agency. So I think there's going to be a lot of trades at the draft during free agency, and we're going to see the NHL, as it usually does, look completely different when the season starts up again in October. Yeah.
Well, I have something I want to throw out there since we're not talking about it, because before you came on, Matt, and you just, with yours, I just want to let's talk about hockey jerseys, because we're all wearing different jerseys. Okay. And so since I brought it up, I'm going to go first, and you guys can debate it, and all the people who watch can debate the greatest hockey jersey ever designed. Okay. The alternate by the Anaheim Ducks that they only wore for 3 games. three. That was it. 3 games. They've never worn it since then. They did the retro reverse where they kind of reversed the colors last year, but this particular jersey, 3 games, never worn, gone, off the market. All the die cut, the numbers, the letters, everything was die cut, no block cut. It's never been done, never been duplicated. Don't know why, but for me, it's the single greatest hockey jersey ever.
It is the greatest hockey jersey ever, but the Ducks lose points for turning a duck's foot sideways and saying, yeah, that looks like a D. Go with that.
Yeah, they need to go back to the full school Mighty Ducks logo full time.
Something.
Absolutely. Well, part of that, is the whole Disney nonsense.
Yep.
Right.
Right. So, but Matt's rocking the one. Okay.
Reverse retro Detroit jersey.
And we always talk about the jerseys when they come out with their new jerseys and stuff. I have to take my headphones out for a minute here. Putting on another jersey.
We got a wardrobe.
That's like
out.
an actual Mighty Ducks jersey, it looks like.
What was that?
So I said that looks like maybe an actual Mighty Ducks jersey.
No, this is not.
Whoa.
Man.
This is my Reading Royals Hogwarts jersey. And
it's Hogwarts. I couldn't even tell from the camera.
Yeah.
Wow.
I was about to say, I just saw the gold on the collar, and I thought maybe is like he pulling out a Gordon Bombay, like the D5.
So I wore this one as well because we all know that the ECHL rocks their jerseys. They come up
100%.
with so many great alternate jerseys all through the season. I mean, the Royals, they have like 15 different jerseys throughout the season. And I think the NHL could take a lesson from their lower counterparts on, fan enthusiasm and engagement, with the whole jersey thing that, they're not nearly as creative as their lower team counterparts are, because the other teams go absolutely crazy. I mean, Matt, your Superman jersey with Kal-El, and it's just so many creative and cool jerseys in the minor leagues. And how many times do we look at the retro jerseys that the NHL come up with and we're like, that's the best you could, that's what your marketing department came up with? That,
right.
We talk about it all the time.
And I think part of that is the branding and the rules they have to have for on-ice products at the NHL level, since it's nationally broadcasted and all of these rights and sponsoring and things like that. So that could tie into it, because minor league baseball does the same thing. I mean, they have hundreds of different jerseys, and the hockey has been, if you go to a game, usually their warm-up jerseys are always something creative, something different, something fun, and then they auction them off. You see them a lot on social media and things like that. But I do agree, it'd be cooler if they had a little bit more fan influence. You said favorite hockey jerseys of all time. It's hard for me to pick just one. I mean, that Mighty Ducks one is great. I've always had a soft spot for the Islanders fisherman jersey. I think that one's sweet. Doesn't ever get tossed around anymore nowadays. I know Lou Lamoriello hates that one as the GM of the Islanders, so I don't think it'll ever get worn while he's there. But that's one of my favorites of all time. Matt, I don't know if you had a favorite.
I mean, the Ducks jersey I think is my favorite, but I'm also, as a fan of an original six team, there's something to be said for the consistency, I think, of a team like Detroit or Montreal that has had the same logo for 100 years. You see the winged wheel and that's Detroit. That's the Red Wings. The CH is Montreal. The maple leaf has changed a little bit over the years, but there's something for that consistency as well. For some of that heritage that I like seeing. Some of the logos don't mess with a good thing almost.
Yeah. All-time classics. I mean, just classic sports franchises right there in general, right? Lots of history, and they've stayed true to it. So
another one of my favorites, I have to say, Nick, you have it. It's the Columbus alternate with the cannon.
The cannon.
That's just it's a unique jersey, and it's unique to them. So that's another one of my favorites. Now let's go to the opposite and the worst. My worst hockey jersey of all time is that ugly Vancouver jersey with the stripes.
The Vancouver V-neck.
Yes, that was, to me, hands down, worst hockey jersey ever.
Worst. That one's pretty ugly. I'm not gonna
Uh,
lie, that one's pretty ugly. Um, hmm.
the Jets reverse retro the first round when it was just that gray was really bad. Or maybe it wasn't the Jets, maybe it was the Maple Leafs. One of those two was pretty bad. I didn't like that one. I think if you're thinking like an all timer, I never liked the
I don't know if they're
Nashville like
ugly.
mustard cat jersey.
I,
Go
I,
ahead,
I
Matt.
don't I don't know if they're ugly, but I think it's a cop out to just write your name on the front of the jersey. Um, whether that's the city or the team name. Like I thought, like I'm gonna pick on the Devils a little bit here. The jersey.
That's an amazing jersey. That's an
It's a
amazing
it's a
jersey.
jersey that says like what it is on the front of it. It
And
says
Uh,
they're
Jersey, and
and it
it's
works
like
because
yeah,
they're
we
from
know.
New Jersey. And then they have the hat that goes along with it that says hat. It's just brilliant marketing. I
It's
love that one.
brilliant marketing, but it's not a great jersey. It's a black jersey that says Jersey on the front.
no,
I
Um,
love that one.
I'm with Nick on this one. I think that was such a clever marketing scheme. But that gold Vancouver with the red and or black stripe, that one, ugh.
Yeah. Those
yeah,
are
that
some
one's pretty bad.
ugly jerseys for sure. There's definitely been some ugly ones. There's definitely been some great ones, just like any sports team out there. You're gonna hit, you're gonna miss. Same thing with the prospects. But kind of looking forward to next season. You know, Stanley Cup just ended. Lot to change. Lots going to take place between now and then. But you guys, ask you now. Who's your take to play in the Stanley Cup final next year? Who would you guys take to face off against each other? I know a lot's going to change and it's going to be completely different. We asked this question again probably once the season starts in October and rosters are finalized. But coming off of everything, who do you guys have a feeling, have a hunch can punch their ticket to the Stanley Cup final next year?
I'll go first. I think from the West, I think Colorado bounces back. I think they're too good to just discount. So that would be my pick out of the West. And out of the East, I I'm torn. I think Tampa Bay knows the window is closing. It's not there yet, but it's closing. And I think Tampa is going to make one more strong push in the playoffs this coming year. Whether they get to the finals or not, I don't know. Um, I think I think New Jersey and Carolina, based on this year, if they can um, build off the success of this year, either one of those teams would not surprise me to see them in the final next year.
yeah, I I'm gonna go with the same pick that I made this year. Actually, I'm gonna assume that I was just a year too early on this. I'm gonna go with the Dallas Stars out of the West. I just think Robertson and Hintz are not going anywhere. Joe Pavelski's a point per game player at almost 40 years old, and Jake Ottinger's just, I mean, he was disappointing, I think, down the stretch in the playoffs, but he's a phenomenal young goalie. They've got pieces on defense. I just think Dallas is primed to get over that hump and into the Stanley Cup final for real, not in a bubble where you, who knows what happened there. The East is tougher because it's so darn good. I mean, the only teams we can say for sure that really aren't going to make the Stanley Cup are Detroit, Philly, and Columbus, right? Kind of everybody else is in the running. But I'm going to go with Carolina. I think they're a gritty team. I think they play solid two-way hockey. Sebastian Aho, I think, is absolutely one of the most underrated and under talked about players. I also think Rod Brindamore is just. They didn't do it this year. I think he's the right guy to get them there. I think they have the right pieces. I really don't think Carolina needs to change a whole lot. I think they can. They're one of the few teams I think that can run it back and really have success. So I'm gonna go Dallas and Carolina.
Yeah, I had Dallas in mind as well. I think they're just built very well. I think they make a couple of changes, maybe find a way to move Jamie Benn's contract off the team. I know
Yeah.
he's the captain, but they won both games without him, and they lost all of them with him. So it's kind of a bad sign there, and that dumb penalty definitely sunk their chances, honestly, in that series. So I think if they can find a way to move him out there, that frees up a bunch of cap space, buy out Ryan Suter, let Thomas Harley have a top four role, take over for where he is, and Ottinger is a good young goalie. He's still learning. I definitely think he can go on another run for them. So I like Dallas's chances coming back there in the West. In the East, since you took Carolina, Matt, that was my pick. I think them not having Svechnikov in the playoffs hurt them. I think Teravainen being kind of banged up hurt them. No Pacioretty, right? They add a few more depth goal scorers. They're going to be there. They just need to find a way to score when it matters. But I'll take New Jersey. I would love to see a Dallas-New Jersey rematch. Of course, seeing my Devils in the final would also be great. I think if they add the right pieces, they certainly can. I mean, they're right there. Young guys are getting better. Probably going to see Nemec make a crack in the lineup this year. Luke Hughes should be a top four guy for them. So very exciting teams in the East, like you said, Matt. A lot to look forward to. And a lot's going to change between now and October. So these predictions will probably look way different.
New Jersey Dallas
Well,
Stars final was one of the greatest finals ever.
that was incredible.
One of the greatest I've ever watched.
So I got to ask, because I've talked about it with some friends and with you guys a little bit. So we all made our picks and nobody said Toronto. We gotta, I mean, we can't talk about hockey right now without talking about what the heck is going to happen with the Toronto Maple Leafs. You got three guys on contract for more than $10 million. You got another one who, assuming he sees those contracts, is going to want at least that much in Toronto, right? I mean, you had, what did they score? That core four scored 4 goals in 5 games against Florida. If you take Marner and Nylander out of it, it's 0 goals. From Tavares and Matthews. What do you do if you're Toronto right now?
Go ahead. No, I was going to say
Dad.
Toronto's in the same boat as Edmonton. They've played fast and loose with the goalie. They've tried this guy. They've tried that guy. And it hasn't worked. So that's number one. Okay. I don't think they've really killed Tampa Bay, their nemesis, either. I mean, they squeaked by Tampa Bay this year. So, and those were 1-goal games. If they go the other way, Tampa Bay moves on and Toronto's out in the first round again. So
100%.
If they're facing Tampa Bay in the playoffs, my money's on Tampa Bay, because, I don't think Toronto builds us, says, oh, we beat them last year, we can beat them. I think Tampa Bay is like, it was a fluke and we're going to crush you guys and it's not even going to be close. Unless Toronto gets a goalie. So they have the same problem that Edmonton has. They need a goalie. But they need, just like Edmonton, they need more support from the third and fourth lines. They need the guys that can contribute when the first line guys aren't. Okay. And that's what got Tampa Bay to the Cup 3 straight times. Like you pointed out, Matt. Okay. 2 years ago, it wasn't a superstar who got the Cup winning goal. Okay. And Tampa Bay, I know you love it, Nick, because it helped the Devils, but losing Palat was huge for Tampa Bay's playoff run. Okay. Because that's another player who, I hate to say it, going through the motions, because it's not really what a player does, but he definitely elevates his game come playoff time. It's just, he's a different player, completely different player. And he made a huge impact for the Devils this year, and was also a huge impact that he wasn't in Tampa. And I think Toronto needs those players, because every team has proved it. If you shut down Toronto's top line, they're going to lose. Because they just don't get enough scoring anywhere else. So they need some secondary scoring, and they need a goalie they can rely on. So,
yeah, if I'm Toronto, I think goaltending is going to be hard to find for them,
right?
Especially the right piece, and giving up the world for Connor Hellebuck, I mean, is the easiest choice, but.
They don't have the world to give up anymore. They went all in this year. That's the other problem.
They don't have the assets anymore. And I don't think he's going to want to stay in Toronto and sign an extension, right? So you're giving up the world for a 1-year chance. So if I'm the GM, this is what I do. You can't move Tavares because of the no trade clause, and his contract's basically unmovable as it is. Like you said earlier, trading away Matthews, you're going to be looked at as the guy who traded away Matthews, right? The
Hmm.
same way with McDavid and Drysdale, so he's got to stay. I think Nylander's been their best playoff performer both the past 2 years, and
Agreed.
he's on the cheapest contract. So I don't think you move him. I think you go out and you ask what you can get for Marner. He's got a high cap hit. You replace him with three guys that equate the same thing. You just build a third line essentially, the way Tampa did through a trade and through a couple free agent signings, and you just try it because I mean, Matthews is just like Crosby and Malkin were when they're prime in Pittsburgh. It doesn't matter who you put next to him. Dupuis, Connor Sheary. Like, do we even talk about these guys anymore? Chris Kunitz. Like,
I
these guys
love
were
that you pulled Pascal Dupuis out of there,
these
man.
guys
That was
these
great.
guys were good players, but they weren't elite first, second line goal scorers, right? They were just
Right.
playing with some of the best centermen in the
Right.
world and guys who would always get the puck on their stick. So you find guys like that. You re-sign someone like Michael Bunting, or maybe you let him go and you find someone similar, but you get those guys around them to complement them, and you find those players out there like a Palat. Or maybe you overpay a little, right? 6 million might be a little high, but you know in the playoffs that guy's going to show up and he's going to do what it takes to win,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah, I agree with everything you guys said, and the only thing I'm going to add is I'm not letting the core four off the hook for it. There's just no excuse for a guy who has scored 100 goals in the past two regular seasons to go 5 games in the playoffs without scoring. There's
yeah,
just no way. And I know stories have circulated that it's kind of come out since Mike Babcock stopped coaching what a jerk he was, and how horrendous he treated players. And there's a story out of Toronto from Marner's rookie season where he went to him as a rookie and asked him to rate his teammates based on work ethic. Not saying that was a good position to put a rookie in or that it's something that Babcock should have done to Marner, but I am saying that looking at it right now, he may have been onto something. These guys, like you said, Dad, they squeaked by Tampa. I'm not ready to say that they've you know um,
Yeah,
slayed that demon
yeah,
by any stretch of the imagination. And then they didn't lose to Florida; they got pummeled. It
right.
wasn't even close. So these guys, I agree. You need the depth scoring. You need the goalie. These leaders, though, have got to step up when it matters and be
Yeah.
leaders. Whether that's the speech in the locker room, whether that's Matthews taking a game. Everybody still talks about, right, his 4 goal debut. You know, where was his 4 goal performance in the playoffs when we needed it, right? And don't get me wrong, Bob was the hot hand, right? Bobrovsky was incredible, but man, at some point you got to put something on
No,
these core four to step up and get it done.
no, you're 100% right there, Matt, with leadership. Because what was it, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, whatever it was? We all talked about it. The playoff that McKinnon had when Colorado had injury after injury, and McKinnon just put them on his back and said, "We are not going to
Mhm.
lose." And then when it became apparent that they just didn't have enough, the McKinnon's face on the bench, I mean, said it all. Like, guys, what more can I do? You got to
yeah.
Like,
It
just
was it was the game against Dallas. He had gone right down. They had
can
just
you
given up a goal. Right, Dallas had just taken the lead. The face-off play happens. McKinnon literally skates through the whole defense, ties up the game, goes up back on the bench exhausted. Dallas comes right back down a minute later, scores, take the lead again.
right,
And look on McKinnon's face, like, what do you want me to do?
Yoel Kiviranta in his first ever NHL action scores a hat trick, and McKinnon's going like, one other person score a goal. Can
Yeah,
can can you make one
right?
save?
yeah,
You know, like
yeah. So,
Grubauer, can you get me one save?
yep,
you
yeah.
know,
But
Toronto's in a very unique spot
I
there.
was
Go
just going
go
to say,
ahead,
but
Dad, if you want to
that's
close a bow on it.
leadership doing what leadership has to do. Like, guys, just come with
Yes.
me, just help me out a little bit, but I'm here. And Matthews et al. Just disappeared.
yeah,
Yeah. The one thing that Toronto could use, and I know there's been talks about Keefe getting extended, and I don't think he's a terrible coach, but just like the Cowboys, right? We're all Cowboys fans. I feel like Toronto could really benefit from a coach who just lights a fire under their butts. Like, hey, like you guys are the best players in the world. Freaking play like it. Like, Stop being like a goody two shoes. Oh, you're good. Like you got it, Matthews. The goals will go in. No, like score a goal or you're done or I'm going to sit you.
Yeah,
Like,
I think
you know,
that might be a good wake up call for those guys. Healthy scratches. Go sit in the press box, fellas. You're taking a couple nights off. And when they ask
right.
why, you tell them until you play like you're supposed to be playing, you're going to sit in the press box.
Play like a
Yeah.
champion.
When you
Yep.
decide to be a leader for this team and pick up these guys, we'll put you back in the lineup. Until then, enjoy the view from the
Yeah.
press box.
I mean, when you're talking about Matthew Nyes and not Austin Matthews
Yeah.
the morning after a Toronto game, there's a problem.
Huge. Huge problem. That's a great point there. Toronto's one of those franchises that's just kind of spinning on its head right now, trying to figure it
Yep.
out. One of the top markets in the NHL, has some of the best players in the league, and just have not seemed to be able to do it, to figure out how to get it done. So it'll be interesting to see what they do this offseason. I'm excited for those fireworks. But as we get close on time here, it's kind of flown by. I really enjoyed this talk. Pass it off to you, Matt. If you want to take quick minutes, maybe another question you wanted to get out, anything you wanted to discuss real quick before we disclose, or
Yeah. So I'm gonna give it. I just gave some flack and a call out to the core four and the Maple Leafs. Now I got to do the opposite, and got to give some credit where credit's due, and eat some crow here. So I want to congratulate Jack Eichel on finding his game and finding the way to be the leader that Vegas needed. I watched him last year when they were trying to make the playoffs, and to use the elementary school term, he was a puck hog. Right, he's out there with guys like Marchessault and Mark Stone, and he just won't pass. He's just skating around the zone until he gets tired and turns it over. And this year, he leads the playoffs in scoring with 26 points and 20 of them are assists. Right, so kudos to Jack Eichel for finding his game, for being what they needed. Congratulations on winning the cup before either Connor McDavid or Austin Matthews.
Yep.
And good job sticking to your guns with the neck surgery. I'm a big proponent that, a person's medical care should be their choice. I know Buffalo fans, he really got some hate from them, from Sabres fans for, not doing what he was supposed to do. But, major kudos to Jack Eichel. It's been a long road. So congratulations. And I'll eat a little bit of crow on that one.
yeah, I mean that's one of those trades. It's a win-win for both teams. I think Buffalo would take that trade. I think they're really happy with their return, and of course Vegas wins the cup. So you're always going to take whatever trade it took to win the cup, and Eichel breaks the stigma. I mean, we talked about it going into the playoffs. Nobody making $10 million or more had ever won the cup. We knew it was eventually going to happen just because with the salary cap going up, more and more players are making that type of money. But Eichel's the first to kind of break that stigma. So we'll find out what the next one is. Maybe it's $12 million. Maybe it's two guys making 10 plus, right? Because Florida had two with Bobrovsky and Barkov. So we'll find out whatever the critics want to point out and say, oh, you can't win with this on your team next. So great call out there for Eichel. He definitely deserved in the conversation for the Conn Smythe. I think it was well deserved for Marchessault, but he definitely led the team and played a phenomenal two-way game against the Oilers and shutting down McDavid, helping them get there to the next level.
100%.
So, Dad, anything for you before we kind of wrap things up here?
Vegas for winning the cup. It was a great playoff. I would just like to touch on something that we haven't touched on, and that as hockey fans, all three of us, can we just band together? Can the hockey fandom of the world just band together and tell the NHL, get rid of the clowns at ESPN and just stick with the guys at TNT, please,
all the way,
please.
100%. Okay? Oh my goodness.
I think everybody in the hockey world would be on board for that and get rid of that ESPN nonsense. I mean, we all know it as soon as it happened. It's good for coverage, but when it comes to game time in the playoffs, it's just going to make it unbearable when you have the guy out there calling Max Domi tie 3 times in the game, calling the Maple Leafs Tampa, right? And they're not even
because the last time ESPN cared about hockey, Ty Domi was still playing.
Yeah, you're not wrong with that. You're not wrong, but Yeah, really looking forward to this off season. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. We'll definitely do a couple more of these episodes as we get started here, as things kind of unwind and we got more things to talk about. But as always, really appreciate you guys coming on, sharing your thoughts, having this conversation, kind of taking our group text into a podcast form, essentially what this was. But we'll definitely
Yeah.
run this back again soon. Really looking forward to our next conversation. And with that, that'll kind of wrap up today's episode. We thank you guys for listening. Be sure to check out the Drafted Pages on Instagram and TikTok, YouTube, Spotify. Like, comment, subscribe, all that stuff. Let us know who your pick is for the next Stanley Cup winner, who you got going into this off season. So with that, that'll wrap things up, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you.